The No Nonsense Roundtable. It's a weekly show broadcast on Rochester, New York's 50,000-watt iHeart radio station, News Radio Wham 1180. The host, Dom Geneva, interviews guests from all walks of life, all with amazing stories to tell. What you are about to hear is a recording of a previous broadcast without the breaks and commercials. Now, here's host Dom Geneva.
Well, welcome everybody to another edition of the No Nonsense Roundtable, 10 o'clock right here every Saturday. And as I like to tell everybody, the past shows are on nononsenseroundtable.com. So today I'm honored to have Officer Denny Wright with me, along with Jim Van Bretterode, who I think everybody knows Jimmy as best as a former police chief of the town of Gates and a former president of the Monroe County Police Chiefs Association. And Jimmy was kind enough to recommend that Officer Wright come in to talk about his story. And I'm going to have Jimmy, as my co-host, introduce Officer Wright for you.
Yeah, so Officer Denny Wright, he suffered a very tragic and serious blindness injury that occurred in 2019 that I'm sure he'll share with us. But, I got to meet Denny because of that horrific incident. I really didn't know Denny that well until that incident. And, we were, as a law enforcement community, the blue line, as people refer it to, we take care of each other. And so when that happened, first time I met him was when we escorted him home from Unity Hospital. We had a big police procession to his house, which is over near the town of Gates. And so I met him at that point, and I also said to myself, as a chief of police, I am going to make sure, that I do remember him and keep him as busy as I can. A lot of times everyone's there the day of the incident. A month later goes by, a lot of people are no longer there to help you. So that's how I got to meet him. I stayed in touch with him immediately and tried to include him in different events in my town. I would call Denny and say, hey, Denny, it's Chief Van Bretterode from Gates, and how would you like to come over here and participate with my officers in this training or meet the group, a community group? And so that's how we stayed in touch, and I tried to include him in so many activities that I could, because I know what it's like as a police officer to you go from a busy lifestyle, the brotherhood, the sisterhood, something like this happens, and it's very traumatic to lose that connection with your fellow officers. And so that's how we became friends, and we've been friends ever since 2019. And more importantly, what I've seen through Denny over these last 4 years is how he took this tragedy, and he didn't succumb to it. He rose to challenge this, and he took on a role of being like a motivational speaker, and he'll tell you the whole story. So that's what really attracted me to him, is how he's dealt with this. And I thought, Dom, this would make a great show someday, and so that's why we're here.
Well, and Denny, I would imagine that as a police officer that you wanted to do this ever since you were a young age, and nobody anticipates happening what happened to you.
Dom, first of all, thanks for having me on the No Nonsense Roundtable here, and I need to also thank Chief Van Bretterode for everything that he has done for me since this has happened. He was one of the first people to come to me and had me working with his officers in his department. And it is true, I always wanted to be a police officer, and I worked my way finally to get it. I was older. I was 31 when I got hired finally by the city. Ironically, when I was in my 20s, and I couldn't get on the police force because of my vision. Back then, we had to be 20/40 and correctable, and I couldn't squint down to that. So a little ironic that now I can't see, but that was the reason why I couldn't get on when I wanted to originally.
Yeah, that is an old age to get on the police force. Now, for those people who don't know, let's talk a little bit about the incident itself without getting into a lot of details.
So the call that I responded to on the day this happened was a call that had been to hundreds and hundreds of times. I want somebody out of my house. And there was no other details than that. And I went there, and the man was going to leave the home, and then something happened in a split second that ended up with me having a knife in my left eye And then the fight was on for my life. I was blinded in my right eye after he hit me, and he stabbed me 25, 30 times. I'm fighting with him, and he's also beating me he has the knife in his fist, and he's hitting my head. That caused damage to the optical nerve behind my right eye, which has left me totally blind. That's amazing. And probably trying to reach for your gun at the same time, right? One of the things he said after he stabbed me in my eye, and I couldn't see, he said, "Now I'm going to take your weapon, your gun." And that wasn't going to happen. So part of the reason maybe that I had lost the sight in my right eye was both my hands are securing my weapon, because I was not going to allow him to have access to it where he could hurt someone in his house, his family members, or the friends of mine coming to help me, officers, the civilians who walked in the house. So he was not going to get access to it, and I did not allow that, which allowed him to beat me profusely above my head. Well, if he's in that big of a state of rage, you have absolutely no idea what he's going to do with that gun. Right. And so at some point during that fight, I was able to separate a little bit. And one of the things I learned in the academy was how to disable your weapon. Now, when you're in the academy and you're brand new and want to be a police officer, why am I learning this? I would not disable my weapon, right? If I have a threat, I'm going to address it. Well, I was blinded immediately, and you're responsible for the rounds in your weapon. And since I could not determine, he was the only one near me, because there was another family member that was on the floor and originally rolling around with us. And so I couldn't just shoot. And I was getting weak, and I knew it. And so I dropped the magazine and discharged around at what I hoped was the ceiling. So if, in fact, I lose grip of the weapon, it was empty. And this is, like you said before, this is something you've been through many, many times, right? I mean, this is a fairly common occurrence to show up at a domestic dispute thing like this, right? Yes, and it's fairly common. I want somebody removed from the house. The call that I went to was 40 minutes old. No one had responded yet. Oh, my Lord, really? I was half thinking that maybe the man will be gone by the time I get there. There was no second call from the woman who called wanting him removed. So most of the time, something might relieve itself before the police gets there. And that wasn't the case. I went in, and he agreed to go to the hospital. And then something happened where he was attacking some of his family members. I couldn't allow that, which allowed him close access to me. And then, again... I have a very uneducated question here. Is it common to have one officer respond in these situations? Because if somebody was with you, I mean, obviously this wouldn't have been a problem, or it couldn't have been a problem. So during my time inside the house, a call for another officer was put out, and for the ambulance to come, because we were going to put him in the ambulance and take him to the hospital. So there was an officer on the way. But it is not a requirement that you have two officers show up at a domestic dispute thing, right? So there's two types of jobs. There's A jobs and B jobs. And priority jobs, which this was, typically multiple police officers will go. And sometimes we beat each other to the location. Okay. Well, we're about ready to head into a break, but we're going to talk now about the other side of this occurrence and how it has affected you in, I guess, it's tough to say like in a positive way, but how you've used this in a moment of character and being able to influence other people and help other people. So right after this break. Well, welcome back. You're listening to the No Nonsense Roundtable. We're here with Officer Denny Wright and my co-host for today, Jim Van Brederode. It took me like a year to be able to pronounce Van Brederode. I'm
still working on it myself.
I always talk about this Italian pastry, sfogliatelle. I don't know what's harder, Van Brederode or sfogliatelle. But we just heard a wonderful explanation of what happened during the incident that
that blinded Officer Wright. And the thing that I didn't realize until the last segment is that you didn't even know him until the incident happened. And so let's go post-incident. The shock to your family must have been amazing. The people that worked on your case have to be heroes also, I would think, because of how the severity of your injuries were. And at what point, I'd like to know, did it all kind of hit you and what'd you feel about it?
Well, it took a while to realize the full extent of what had happened to me. There was a lot of confusion, or the doctors weren't sure of why I couldn't see out of my right eye. Maybe it was blood loss, maybe it was swelling, maybe it was something else. So at the beginning, there's hope. I knew I wasn't going to see out of my left eye, but there was hope that I would see out of my right. And, eventually, after months after that, it comes to fruition that that's not going to happen. But you mentioned my family, and as terrible as this is for me, that it happened to my family too. Things in my house got changed immediately. Stuff that I would always take care of, not going to get taken care of by me. And one of the hardest things to do for a police officer, and I imagine most people, is in particular for a police officer, is ask for help. We rub dirt on our wound and move along. Go to the next job, go to the next thing. Unfortunately, a lot of us don't talk about the things that we do on the job or the price that may have us pay. And so what happened was a terrible incident, but the bigger part of the story is after. The love and support from not only my family and colleagues, but from the community. People coming at me from all angles and wanting to help. And although I wouldn't wish this on anyone, there's silver lining in anything. I've met people I didn't know. I've gone places I would have never have gone, and I've done things I would have never had done. And every day is work, but I try to make sure that I'm doing something every day, and finding purpose is the thing that I struggle with, or the thing that I continue to work on, because to have what you do for a living taken away in a split second. Luckily, not my life, but my ability to do the job that I did is gone. And if it wasn't for people like the chief here, who helped me as I got through that process, and the sheriff and my department, if I wasn't able to be involved in some things at the police academy, or talking to community groups, or veteran police officers, young police officers, I've traveled, I've talked, and a lot of what I talk about is what police should maybe do better, and not just police, but first responders. We need to recognize that there's a price to pay for the things that we do and see, and we need to be better at addressing them with each other and on our own.
So the job has to have changed a lot since you first started, too, right? I mean, the atmosphere, what you do day to day, violence. Sure. Jimmy, why don't you comment on that a little bit? Because it sounds like some of this is a systemic problem where people are more violent when you respond to them than they used to be, right? I mean,
yeah.
Am I misreading that?
No, and I think what's more shocking as I retired from my career was the lack of respect, the lack of authority for the uniform. Over the years, a police car would pull up on scene of a big bar fight, and everybody would scatter. They see the police car and they'd scatter, right? They were afraid of the policeman getting out of the car and who would get arrested and locked up. And very seldom did somebody actually challenge you physically, or God forbid they actually pull a weapon on you. But as we look at today in 2024, you see how many incidents do we see where someone's pulling a gun on a police officer, or the police having to shoot somebody, and so that whole level of dangerous right now with people not having any respect for the police uniform, the badge, and I think that's exactly what happened in 2019. It was just a simple routine, if there's such a word for routine, nonviolent family dispute here. And like Denny said, we go on these calls every day. Somebody wants a loved one removed from their house, or not getting along for the moment. And we do this every day in and day out. And like I said, 99% of the times everything goes smooth. Somebody agrees to leave, and we can resolve it. And but I think the big change today is that whole lack of respect, the whole lack of authority, and so the men and women out there today are paying the price for that. As we saw locally, we've had 2 police shootings since Christmas Eve, all people that had no fear for the police.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the laws have not made your jobs any easier.
No, and of course, all the rhetoric from 2020 from our elected officials and leaders, that did not help at all. When you had public officials on TV putting down the police and questioning our authority, our ability to do the job, and then we had the laws that all changed after that. And so there's very little consequences now, of course, when we arrest somebody, and it just contributes to that whole snowball effect of this lack of respect and challenging the police.
Well, when we come back from the news break, I want to absolutely get into your head, Denny, about your attitude and how, you say there's silver lining with everything. It's hard for some people to deal with instances like this and tragedies. I mean, some people, their pen runs out of ink, and they have anxiety, and they can't handle it because their favorite product isn't available anymore, or whatever it is. They can't afford what they want to afford. But then there are real problems, and the real problems and big problems. And my dad would, God rest his soul, would say it has a lot to do with your character and what you do with what is handed to you. And it's almost inconceivable that somebody can do what you're doing right now, having gone through this with the attitude that you have, and my dad, again, he would call it intestinal fortitude that you have. And I'm not blowing smoke at you. It's absolutely inspirational to think of this. And we're going to talk about that when we come back, and we're going to talk about something else, which is going to sound very, very strange right now. We're going to be talking about horses when we get back. So with that, we're into the bottom of the news hour, and we'll see you on the other side of the news. Well, we're back talking to Officer Denny Wright and his story. And my co-host today is my friend. I'm proud to call you my friend, Mr. Jim Van Brederode.
Thank you very much, Dom. It's great to be here.
People say, I said he's a former police chief, and I think Nita said, you need to say retired because former sounds like they got rid of him.
That's a good point.
That's a very good point. Yes, I should listen to my wife more. You're absolutely right. Don't say former because you don't know what happened.
Suspicious.
It sounds suspicious. So Danny, we were talking about your like I said, my dad would call it intestinal fortitude. I mean, my Lord, you go through this, and then you're not you're not wallowing in self-pity. You're not letting it get you down. You are overcoming your adversity and using it to the good. And not that you would wish it on anybody, but you would wish that people who went through things like this responded like you. I mean, God's honest truth. Seriously.
So there certainly was a choice to be made shortly after this happened. One choice is to try to learn as much as you can, try to move forward the best you can. And the other choice might not have been good for anyone, for me, for my family. If I'm a miserable, hate the world, woe is me, that wouldn't work. So I've tried since I was in the rehab center to learn as much as I can to figure out how to manage doing normal, everyday things in the dark. And trying to find more to do, because there must be a reason why I'm still here, because it was in question for some time at the beginning. And I feel it incumbent upon me that I did survive, that I do something to help. My career as a police officer in Rochester It was the only thing I ever wanted to do my whole life. And being in law enforcement or a first responder, you have the opportunity to have a profound effect on someone else's life in a short period of time. And so I needed to find something to do that would help people who may or may not end up going through something like I've been through. So talking about what happened to me with police officers, going through the things I've been doing since, the fact that I'm not embarrassed to say I see 2 therapists a month, because I have to manage. Because don't think because it looks like I'm doing good and everything's going fine, don't think that's not a struggle that I have every day. You wake up in the morning and immediately it's, oh damn, I'm blind still. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I've had a dream where I can see, convince myself, and then I wake up. And that's it doesn't happen too often, and that's bad. And in the big picture of things, I've been very lucky as far as aftermath, post-traumatic stress, certain symptoms that you may have. I've been very lucky with that. I have to every day push to find something to do, to move forward, to do something that is helping my family, helping the people I worked with, and my community.
Now you're giving lots of talks, lectures. Let's talk a little bit about that. So how that started was I got an award in Washington, D.C. that the union president put me in for, which got me at a big conference and having to speak in front of that, receiving the award. And then people who were there started coming around and would you come out to our state, to our place, and talk and present. And that's how that started. This summer I was in Los Angeles and San Diego at police conventions, and then I was in Boca Raton in Florida. It turns out that public speaking when you're blind is very easy. No intimidation factors. All right. Okay. So, you've heard when people, well, you should just pretend everyone is naked. So I tell everybody, you don't need to do that. Just put a blindfold on and you'll be fine, right?
That's a good point. So, public speaking 101.
There you go. So, and it's important. And when I'm doing that with law enforcement personnel, I do review the body camera video and then talk about more intimate details of what happened before the other officers, the civilians came and got me out of there and saved my life. Well,
and like I said before, no telling who you might have saved that day. I mean, after all, you had somebody who was. You suspect that they were high on drugs? Was that it, or it doesn't? Is it probably a relevant question? But I mean, was this somebody who just absolutely snapped? Is that what it was?
I'm sure it was a combination of many things.
So, and you were talking about therapy and going to therapists, but there's something else that you're doing, and I mentioned it before the break. You talk about the horses. This is, and look at the smile on your face. I mean, that's
So I talk about I talk about how we need to help each other. And some point after this incident, a friend of mine, an officer who was in the academy class with me, called me up and said, "Would you like to go out to this horse farm?" And I was like, well, of course, you come pick me up, I'll go. And I figured I'd go and they'd put me on the horse and I'd take a ride and then I'd come home and that'd probably be the end of that. But it wasn't. It was the beginning of something. But Joanne, if she wouldn't have came to me, if she didn't think outside of the box, I would have never thought that maybe I should go do things with horses. And I started going somewhere where I was initially working with some Mustangs, some wild horses, which were essentially broke, but you still have to work with them, get them used to human contact. And I was learning horsemanship and working with horses. And then that turned into a group of guys, a lot of mounted police officers who decided, well, we're going to get Denny to ride. I never rode a horse when I could see. Right? So But I'm game. I'm game, and I've been so very lucky. Twice a week, I'm on the back of a horse. I do it with the sheriff's mounted unit, and also with a retired Rochester officer, Charlie Horst, at his stables, Centerpoint Stables. And it is probably the single best thing that I have done for myself since this happened to me, is the time I spend, whether I'm riding or not, the time I spend with the horses is powerful, and something I would have never thought of unless my friend asked me to come check something out.
Well, it was Ronald Reagan who said there's nothing better for the inside of a man than the outside of a horse.
There you go.
He's a smart man.
He's a smart man. Well, he was my favorite. I don't know about you guys. But
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
yeah,
Absolutely.
You know, he was the no nonsense president. When he said something, it's like when. Do you remember when he let go of the air traffic controllers? No, you can't do that. No, hell, I can't. Yeah. And we're about ready to head into another break, but this has been a fascinating story. I want to talk to you about what your plans for the future are, because obviously you're doing more and more as time goes on, and we're going to talk to Jimmy a little bit more about what his plans are for the future. Going to run again?
No. The political world is over. New York is done.
All right. Well, right after this, we'll see you back here at the No Nonsense Roundtable. Well, welcome back. You're listening to the No Nonsense Roundtable. We're here with Officer Denny Wright and Mr. Jim. Well, it's Mr. Net. He used to be Chief. You still call you Chief?
Everybody does.
Everybody
Absolutely.
calls you Chief Van Brederode. Jim ran for office last year, and he has officially announced that he's not going to announce.
Nope. That was one and run.
Been there, done that.
New York is a tough state.
Oh, it's a tough state. You know, somebody came up to me once and said, would like to see if you would like to run for, like town council or, whatever. And I go, no. They said, what makes you think you can't get elected? I says, no, that's not even a question when you don't want to do it.
That's even more.
I really don't get along very well with people. Just ask Nita. She'll tell you.
That's right.
So Denny, this thing with the horse. Now, tell me exactly what you do with that. How much time do you spend on the horse, and who are you? Are you with people from law enforcement while they're training their horses? I mean, what's a horse day like?
So on Tuesdays, I spend time with the Sheriff's Department mounted unit out in Mendon. And I have a friend also, an ex-mounted police officer, Gary Sikoria, who picks me up and takes me out there. And then I saddle up the horse, and we go over obstacles, work on movements that they might be doing when they're doing their mounted work. And the camaraderie there is I'm hanging out with cops. Yeah. I don't have to worry about what I might say or not.
More importantly.
But it's an excellent connection with people who did the job that I did, and the mounted unit, most of them more experienced than me. And then on Thursdays, I go and I ride with Charlie Horst. And we go on trail rides out about his property, and it's just the most amazing thing, and it is the 2-3 hours a week, the best part of my week in most cases.
So Jimmy and I, being like prepubescent boys in our head, every time you say Charlie Horst, we're sitting.
He really was a legend in the Rochester Police Department for years.
Oh, yeah.
He was on the horse. He was on the mounted patrol for years, and of course his name would fall into it.
That would. So Denny, what is your hopes and plans for the future? I mean, obviously you're on a journey here because you keep on doing more and more. I mean, what would you, waving a magic wand? What would you want?
What I would want to do is continue to speak with, in particular, the brand new officers at the academy. And also I push in on the veterans. We have to change a culture. Most departments now in New York have to have some sort of officer wellness program, something where we help each other out, or there's things we have to manage the job that we do. We have to manage it better in our own heads. We see things nobody should see, do things nobody should do, and then we go home. And we'll push it aside and pretend like it didn't bother us. So, over the years, I've been married 28 years. I have kids. I may have had things to talk about, family issues and stuff, and used therapy for that. But never once did it cross my mind that I would go and talk about what I do at work, because then other officers, other law enforcement people would think I'm weak. So that culture needs to get changed, and I say if they don't consider finding some help, asking for that help, I spoke that is almost impossible for cops to do. If you don't ask for that help, I'd say that's a weakness. So we need to change a culture. We need to take away stigma from mental health, and if me talking about what happened to me and the things that I've done to try to help myself, because that's all I'm doing is I'm trying, and I try every day, and hopefully it works. If it doesn't, I'll try again tomorrow. But if I can manage or learn to manage or understand that it's okay to talk about the things that we see and do, then why did it take 23 years and a knife in my head until I decided to do that? If I had started maybe a couple decades ago talking about work with somebody, maybe that would have made me a better husband, a better father, a better friend, uncle, a better person, and a better cop. If I would have decided to deal with the things that were in front of my face on a daily basis.
Yeah, there's a whole cumulative effect that plays into this, especially with somebody with 23 years on the job. You've seen a lot of people die in front of you, suicide, all the critical incidents that you're exposed to that a normal person will never see ever in probably their entire lifetime. And then we go in at the end of our shift. We go into the locker room. We laugh, we giggle, and then we go home, and it's not healthy.
It's inconceivable to me how you can deal with that. I mean, somebody in the military has got to have the same experience, but they're not fighting every day. I mean, you're fighting every day. I mean, for decades and decades and decades, this stuff has got to accumulate with you over time. If you're assigned in the military, you might be in conflict here or conflict there, but it's not every day for 30 or 35 years.
Right, absolutely.
So very soon, I'm going to be attending a post-critical incident seminar that is put on by the New York Law Enforcement Assistance Program in New York State. And it's a 3-day seminar. It's other officers coming together. We'll be speaking of whatever critical incidents we've been involved in, and there'll be support people there that can also talk with us as needed. And this is something that I probably put off for a couple of years, because I do know somebody who was instrumental in these seminars, who's been asking me maybe I should check this out. And now I'm going to, and I hope, and I'm positive that whatever happens and there is going to give me more strength to move forward with what I'm doing. Because one of the things I learned about talking at police conventions is that talking to other law enforcement personnel who've been in a catastrophic situation like mine, that is powerful. It is powerful, and we need to be able to talk to each other. We need to look out for each other. I try to reach out to law enforcement, first responders as incidents happen around here, just to be a sounding board for them. And that's the biggest thing that I will want to continue to be doing is whatever I can to help anybody who's a first responder.
In all honesty, it's even beyond that. It's beyond that, because when you see somebody that is overcoming the challenges that you've been put through and using it the best you can to make life a little bit better for whoever it is, if nothing else than being an inspiration for people, because when you have a bad day or you think that something isn't going exactly the way you want, and you see somebody like you who's overcoming this substantial challenge in your life, it's truly not blowing smoke. It's inspirational. It's inspirational. It's an honor to have you here. It really is an honor to have you here, and I'm a little disappointed that we're about ready to go, but. Yeah, it's been fantastic, and I'm glad I got to meet you, and I wouldn't have met you if it wasn't for Jimmy and the respect that I have for your profession. So with that, Jimmy, you can have the second to last word, and
No, I think Denny is a heck of a role model for all of us to follow, and that's why I stay close to him. And there's nothing better than a peer-to-peer, someone to talk to after a major incident. And that's his role today.
And Denny, go ahead.
Well, Dom, thank you for affording me the opportunity to be here with you and to talk about the things, not only what happened to me, but the aftermath and what needs to happen going forward, not just for me, but for everyone who is a first responder. And to have people wanting to know or learn about it, it is a powerful thing. And so if now I can share and I can help, then that's what my goal will be to do moving forward. I would suggest don't try this being blind stuff, but everyone should go see their eye doctor. But
yes.
But no matter what happens to you in your life, regardless of your job, you can handle what is in front of you. You have to make that choice to do it, but it doesn't matter what it is. You can manage. And if that's something someone can learn from me, then that's me doing something good. Not easy, but you can handle anything that happens to you in your life.
Well, God bless you for what you're doing, and the best of luck to you. And we'll have you on again one of these days, and we'll follow up and see how you're progressing there. So again, it's been an honor to have you on the show. Thank you very much, everybody. 10 o'clock next Saturday, same place, right here.
Thanks for listening. Tune in every weekend from 10 to 11 on News Radio Wham 1180. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll make more.